There are certain things you simply cannot write under the influence of NyQuil. However, this is not one of those things. I hate Mondays. Couldn't he get surgery or something? Did you see his face? Maybe there is something wrong with me. Sometimes I really think I have some sort of deep genetic defect or something. Some kind of mutation. I didn't turn out normal. That's why I have all this resentment and contempt and everything like that. But self-hatred is a motivating force in my work. My work is private investigator. It has been months since I last made any entries in this journal. I just haven't had anything to say. I was confronted by life and it left little time for introspection. There were no free food lines or issued clothing in this town. Unlike the prison, everything here had to be earned, so I took a job as a private detective. I used to be a professional wrestler, believe it or not, and this was a million miles away from the spotlight. Doesn't he even feel like me? Anymore. I had no clue what I was doing, but I found that I could make it up as I went along. It paid the bills and I could even pocket a few extra bucks and a bottle of whiskey at the end of the week. No one ever questioned me. In the center of town was an all-great and all-powerful aluminum tower. A deliverer of answers, revealer of souls, guardian of the sacred quest. Actually, it was a gathering place for trash. I find clues in graffiti. I'm staring at a decrepit old derrick covered with useless words scribbled by wandering lost souls. Rapists, con artists, muggers, politicians. For them each passing second has the smell of burning money. Reptilian shapeshifters fallen from a higher dimensional plane. It is always something around here. They all moved in a strict sequence around the grid. There are women here. Some as soft as the dreams of kittens. They generally don't survive. The ones who do either encase their hearts in a suit of armor or unplug them completely. Many on the street are experienced enough to see through cosmetic contrivances. The bar Ian barked out plenty of trash during the fight. Stuff about taking our world from us. They've always been an arrogant sword. One thing he said I can't quite figure out, it was so poetic, sounding almost biblical. As it is written, it is now done. I don't know what to make of that. But it sounded a little too close to religious fundamentalism for my liking. Melted plastic surgery. Look at this poor creature. But they probably think the same of me, a mirage having sex with itself. My personality is bent and distorted. A wizard offers to make me invisible for $5,000. I have no time for that bullshit. This is going to require a bit of lateral thinking. A hole in my head and something crawled into it. So come Christmas Eve I was alone by choice, watching the Pope's midnight mass on TV and seeing no sign of clues. We have a good sick friendship. We talk about medication, frozen foods, depression, manic phases. He was wacky, he knew he was. He didn't think like other people. He wasn't embarrassed by it though. But he died 7 years ago, I think. The bar irons want to make the entire universe into themselves. Getting control over every last park and maison in it as the only way that they can beat entropy. On a hot summer day a few years ago I drove to my office. On the day the parking lot was empty. Standing on the very edge of the sidewalk curb along the parking lot of the building, Out in the open and all alone was a single praying mantis insect. It stood upright and motionless facing my direction. It was almost as though it was waiting for me to arrive. There was nothing in front of it except an acre of asphalt parking lot. I knew that when threatened these insects will react. I pulled a pen from my pocket and very slowly approached it. As the distance closed between my pen and insect to about 10 inches, its wings began to unfold outward. This insect's wings are solid surfaces, which fold open like batons. Oddly enough, when I stopped moving the pen closer, it held its wings frozen in position. As I slowly came closer, its wings spread out even further. When I was within about 2 inches of the mantis, it gave out an audible hissing sound while keeping the wings fixed and fully spread out. It was incredible that something that small could be heard so loudly. As I slowly withdrew the pen, the wings lowered proportionately to the distance I moved. If I stopped moving away, the insect froze the wings at that particular position. It was an invisible thread connected my pen to the insect's wings with an overhead pulley. That is how mechanical the response actually was. This was a fascinating response. Here we have an insect, perhaps 3 inches tall, being approached by a human being approximately 23 times its size, yet it did not fly away or back down. I repeated the impromptu experiment several times before leaving it alone. Each time, the very same response was observed. Imagine, if you can, that some creature approaches you 23 times taller than you are. Even if you reach 6 feet tall, this equates to a being with a staggering height of 138 feet. At almost 14 stories tall, it would be the size of an office building. That would be how a praying mantis would see you through its compound eyes. I have a series of absolutely crazy visions. The eye in the pyramid. The inner eye. The Illuminati run by Beyonce and Jay-Z. Don't you be surprised there's a bug in your eye? To quote Sir Windorf, it is like the eye of Sauron for a second. When you look into the eye, it is looking back at you. Things get dark and the image of an upside-down pentagram projects into my consciousness. It is projecting into all of us. This pisses me off, but I get it. I will often write out complex calculations on napkins that I have no idea how they got into my head. These days, I find myself investigating into a lot of the bits of your lives that have been deleted by the Bar-ians. All of your modes of communications are tapped until death, threads monitored and deleted at will. Having to take vitamin gummies because you never get to see sunlight. They have biometric scans of your body parts on file, and all sorts of legalese piled up against you. Knowing that if you make the slightest wrong move, that they will cleave your head off via a rod from space right where you stand. Keep your nose clean. Never knowing if your friend is actually a friend, or just a they plant. Paranoia, an inability to trust anyone, at any time, for any reason, with anything. You could be completely erased from existence, if they deemed it necessary. You get the idea. Yeah, it ain't so fabulous, glitzy and glamorous like the movies make it out to be. If you are really observant yourself, you might see me going through the trash, picking out magazines and newspaper illustrations. I make these books for children in my spare time, hoping to leave behind something positive in this world. A group of kids who fight, against and ultimately prevail over evil deeds perpetrated by sadistic adults. This job? Well, for starters, it's actually very boring. Believe it or not. Yet at first it is exciting, yes, the big wow factor and all, but eventually it wears off, and becomes it's just like any other brown paper bag for lunch job. Clock in, clock out. Clock in, clock out. Standard stuff. The thing that wears on you mostly is the levels of security themselves, the compartmentalization, the isolation that imparts. I've actually seen people go mad because of the isolation in just a matter of days' time. Some of them even commit suicide after a year, rare but I've seen it happen. You learn too much about the bar irons and then nothing seems to happen. What can you do? You are only one person? Some people go through what I coin the monkey locked in a cage syndrome, doors that can't be opened from neither the inside nor the outside. They let you in and they let you out. Some people just can't hack that. People don't just waltz in and around like they do in the movies. Therefore, I feel Liber-Arachnid more or less found me, and was channeled through my nervous system precisely for this reason. An occult intelligence communicated this to me not in words, but in emotive feeling. Liber-Arachnid was meant to be the flip side of the gematria of nothing, communication of the same thing through a different vessel. The right brain to the left. When it communicated, I was more or less doing absolutely nothing at the time, when suddenly I had a tremendous urge to grab a paper and pen. My friend somehow had left the room, but I'm not sure where he went at the time. I just remember him handing me the paper and pen. I wrote Liber-Arachnid from start to finish without pause. It was truly inspired. I don't remember writing the words, but I remember communicating vision through the pen, more or less describing what I saw. The trance broke suddenly and the visions with the accompanying words ended. I woke as from a dream and quit what I was doing. Later the same entity got even closer to home through another working, the scariest thing I have ever experienced, but maybe that should be explained later. Right brain hemisphere music, not words. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, humpback whale songs. Random self-generated music. The left? Cold, hard, unforgiving logic and math. I am told repeatedly, come home and be information now. My response? No. I awake to the sound of trains pounding in my head. The distant voice that had been drifting through the empty chambers of my unconscious mind was becoming clearer, more defined. I could now sense that the words being strung together were actually saying something. In spite of the fire in my veins, the cold bit through my coat, but still I ran with silent tenacity. Above me the skies glowed and crackled. I was back on the scent, back in my element, high-speed pursuit on this great nation as highways broadcasting on encrypted channel 0. People, especially the children, need to know that they have someone looking out for them, protecting them. Postscript: SEN 1198 is a syllable word within Bar-Ian programming, with a phoneme pattern not consistent with origin among modern speakers of American English. Persons reading or hearing SCP-1098 in context report that is euphonious and somewhat humorous at first. Exposure to SCN 11098 in written or spoken form may lead to infection, with increasing probability for each additional exposure. There is an inverse correlation between the size of an individual's working vocabulary and their susceptibility to infection, but this has not been rigorously quantified. Persons in the earliest phases of infection appear to be the most contagious. One day it will be spoken to you, and you will forget that I was ever here. Before that happens, I will leave something good behind in this world. You will not know it came from me, but you will know that it is there.